let's talk about some quarterbacks the Broncos could land in free agency via a signing or a trade, because a rumor came out that they were interested in Sam Darnold. He ultimately picked the Vikings over the Broncos. So now we have to wonder, are they going to look for a consolation prize, or was it Sam Darnold or nothing? Let's assume they do look for a consolation prize, because Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci are the only quarterbacks on this team's roster. And there are some still, I can't even say good free agent quarterbacks. There are free agent quarterbacks out there. Here's the list right now. Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy Garoppolo, absolutely washed. Brett Rypien, you want to run that back? Joe Flacco is a very, intriguing option, I'll call it, since he won NFL Comeback Player of the Year, but didn't work so well his first time in Denver. Josh Dobbs is good for like 3 to 4 games off the bench, and then the Josh Dobbs experience becomes a very sad one. Easton Stick, he played for the Chargers at the end of last season. Tyler Huntley's a free agent. Mason Rudolph played some turnover-free football for the Steelers at the end of 2023. There's Carson Wentz. Speaking of former Broncos quarterback, how about Trevor Siemian? He's got more wins than any other quarterback does since Peyton Manning retired, which is the saddest stat, I think, in Broncos history at the moment. I would say the two most notable of those 10 right now are Ryan Tannehill and Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll also toss in like Joe Flacco into that conversation. Neither one of these quarterbacks played well last year. Both of them were benched. Both of them sucked. And maybe you can blame it on the coaching for Jimmy G, and for Tannehill, there's nothing you can really blame it on. But maybe the Broncos look and say, we don't have a better option, right? Now, there is Joe Flacco, who played very well for the Browns last year, helped him go on a postseason push. 13 touchdowns in 5 games. That's almost 3 touchdowns a game. The interceptions were there, but that's just the price of doing business when you're dealing with Joe Flacco, right? He's going to spray the football all over the field. Now, of course, we know that Joe Flacco's first stint in Denver was not a memorable one. A trade that ultimately ended after an injury, took him out for the second half of the season. So I don't see, it's a new regime, so it's still tough to believe that they'd go after Joe Flacco. However, they may not have a better option, right? Then you got Mason Rudolph, who played a couple of games for the Steelers after Pickett went down, Trubisky was benched, and they stuck with Mason, and he averaged 180 yards a game. He was very smart with the football, didn't really push it down the field. So if you're looking for an infield single, this is likely your signing, and it's not going to cost you much money at all. Of those 10 free agents, let's actually put them back on screen really quickly, Tex. Of the 10 free agents that are recognizable-ish names out there, I would cross out Brett Rypien and Easton Stick as just no way. I can't say no way. There's just not a good option out there. I'm sorry, guys. The energy's not here today because this is just an awful crop of quarterbacks. I say that with Joe Flacco being the exclusion, although I don't know if you can really believe he's going to continue the way he ended last year. If he just caught lightning in a bottle and it's something about him playing for that Browns team, or if he can continue playing at that level on another team in 2024. So, of the top 10 quarterbacks the Broncos could sign, I'd rule out Brett Rypien and Easton Stick, which leaves me 8 quarterbacks in free agency, and I've got 2 more via trade. But what free agent quarterback would you want the Broncos to sign? Let me know down below in the comment section who your top free agent QB guy is. For me, I'd go with Joe Flacco. And I know that I just put up a good argument not to sign Flacco, but I look at that crop and I don't see a better option. So maybe Flacco can continue playing the way he ended last year in Cleveland, those 13 touchdowns in 5 games. He was an awesome player for the Browns who was pushing the ball down the field, making big play after big play, a big reason why he won NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Now, of course, Broncos country doesn't have to have a long-term memory to remember the first Joe Flacco experience was not a memorable one. Came over from Baltimore, got injured, played half a season, 1,800 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and that was it for him in Denver. Now, times have changed, and maybe the coaching staff will, with a brand new coaching staff that is, almost no one's left from 2019, whether it's on the, actually, Justin Simmons being released, and Bowles was There may no Bowles was there, I believe. So yeah, there's not many people left over from Joe Flacco in 2019. Cortland Sutton's first year, so we got that. Um, there's not a lot of options, and that's the main point I'm trying to drive home right now. I'm not going to stand here and act like one guy is 10 times better than another guy. This is a quarterback competition signing, so even if you do sign Joe Flacco, Mason Rudolph, Jimmy G, I don't think you are handing them the starting job by any means. It would be between them, Jarrett Stidham, and a rookie most likely, all duking it out for the starting job. And I think there should be some competition brought in and it not be between just two guys. I'd rather spread it around a little bit and let three players duke it out, and hopefully whichever guy wins that battle ends up being an okay starting quarterback for this team. Now, before we get to my trade targets for the Broncos, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor today, which is Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports service in North America, the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. So here are my selections for the NBA games tonight. It's Pi Day, so I took the more on James Harden at 3.14 points. I also like the more on Jalen Suggs at 7.5. Just seems like too low of a number to pass on. And then I'm going to go with the less on Jamal Murray at 21.5 points. I just feel like I had to find some sort of balance of the mores and the less, which that's all you do. You pick 2 to 6 players, and then you choose more or less on their projected stats. It is that easy. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, here are 2 trade targets for the Broncos. Bears quarterback Justin Fields, we've talked about before on the channel. And then Sam Howell, who we've mentioned before, but I'd like to give a little bit more airtime to. Let's start with Justin Fields, though, because he is the, I wouldn't say necessarily more appealing option, but more notable name, I would say, of the bunch. Through 3 seasons in Chicago, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of blame to go around, and Justin Fields is not excluded from that blame, but I feel like he is a franchise starting quarterback in this league that ultimately was plagued by the head coach and GM that drafted him were fired a year later. The head coach and offensive coordinator that were hired in his second season are awful at their jobs. And I think Justin Fields with better coaching, like say Sean Payton, could flourish a lot more, right? You can look at his stats from his first 3 years passing, but Justin Fields, we know, is such an athletic quarterback. He is more than just a passer. He's got great rushing abilities as well. 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns in 2022. But he is a good deep throw passer. Like, he's got the deep ball accuracy and velocity. He tends to hold on to the ball a little bit too long. That leads to sacks and interceptions, which is not good because that's what Sean Payton wants to get away from. That's what Russell Wilson, minus the interceptions part, was doing too much of for Sean Payton's liking. I think at this point, Justin Fields will likely be a draft day trade. That's the prediction I'm rolling with at this stage because Kirk Cousins has signed, Gardner Minshew has signed, a lot of quarterbacks have already signed, so holes are getting filled up on quarterback rosters, and makes you wonder if a team goes into the NFL draft thinking, we want to get this guy, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. And if they get picked one slot before them, maybe they decide, all right, we still want to use this pick on a quarterback. Our #1 guy is gone, so let's call Chicago and use it to get Justin Fields. Now, the other quarterback that Denver could trade for is Sam Howell. The Washington Commanders are definitely going to be going quarterback at #2, and maybe they hold on to Howell to be the backup. I don't think that's a bad idea, right? Every team should have learned last season how important it is to have a backup quarterback with all the injuries that teams sustained. And so maybe Washington feels like we shouldn't completely abandon ship on Sam Howell just in case, the quarterback is a bust, which would not be the first time in draft history. Now, Sam Howell played well last year. I think that's an okay word to describe it. He got off to a really good start, right? We all saw it week 2. A miraculous comeback for the Commanders, but then the ending was awful. Goes from 17 touchdowns to 4 touchdowns, picks up his interceptions, and his quarterback rating gets cut in half nearly, while the completion percentage goes down by 9 points. So there were a lot of issues with Sam Howell last season at the end, but if Sean Payton feels like he's one of my best options available since all the other good quarterbacks are taken, that could be a spot where he pursues. So keep an eye on Sam Howell. Now, if you had to pick a quarterback, who would you pick? Justin Fields or Sam Howell? Let me know in the comment section below which QB you would like to see Denver go after. I think Sean Payton would prefer Sam Howell. I just feel like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson have a little bit too much in common for Sean Payton to dump Russell Wilson and then go get a slightly younger version. They're not apples to apples as quarterbacks, but they do have some similar traits where I think Sam Howell fits a little bit more of the Sean Payton quarterback mold of, I want a guy that's going to stand in the pocket, that's going to go through his progressions, and is going to get the ball out on time and keep my complex offense on track. Sam Howell struggled with not turning it over at the end of last season, but a lot of quarterbacks in their first true year as a starter turn the ball over a ton. Go look at Peyton Manning's first year in Indianapolis. So maybe Sean Payton feels like, you know what? Just because the Commanders want to go get a new quarterback doesn't mean Sam Howell is a bad option. So that could be a trade target for the Broncos. That will do it for us on this morning's edition of the Broncos Breakdown. If we get some more signings like Michael Burton re-signing or anything else, we will keep you posted here on the channel. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a thing when it comes to your favorite team.